Okay, this here is a presenter. I never used these. This is the first time I'm going to use one of these, okay? So if I don't quite get the hang of it, please excuse me, all right? It should be pretty straightforward, right? One click forward, one click back, all right? But this is technology, and we know how technology works. Sometimes it doesn't, right? Yes, exactly, yes. Well, as long as I haven't left any questionable material on my desktop, we should be okay, right? Okay, so Sheetset Manager. Just a quick introduction for myself. My name's Jim McPherson. I work for Moffett & Nichol. I'm based out of our Tampa office in Florida. I'm what you would call the quasi-corporate CAD manager for the company. We have upwards of 200 plus users in probably 16, 17 production offices around the country. We have a couple of offices overseas, Colombia, South America, Panama, Vancouver. Although Vancouver isn't really overseas, right? Any Canadians in the audience today? All right. Let's get this thing moving, eh? Well, the funny thing is that it's not just Canadians that say that. The Aussies do the same thing, all right, and the Brits and the South Africans and the Kiwis. And to a lot of people, we all just sound the same anyway, right? Okay, so this is just the class summary that you've all seen from the handout. Made a couple of tweaks to the presentation just because last minute things I figured it might be a little bit that we should cover and stuff I really needed to drop out. So you're all familiar with this. I think the main thing, a couple of points I'd like to make at this stage is that, first of all, I'm assuming a certain level of proficiency in Sheetset Manager. I'll get to that in a minute. We're going to be talking a little bit about best practices, and I've got some custom tools that I'll present and do some demonstrations on a little later in the class. All right, so this is just a basic outline of what we're going to be doing today, what we're going to be covering. A little bit of what I call general stuff up front, just a bit of preamble so I can get to know you a little bit, so I know how to deliver, so to speak, so I can target my discussion with you. We'll go over some of the key learning objectives, which, once again, you should be somewhat familiar with if you've looked at the handout. Who's actually read through the handout? Now, surprises is much more fun, isn't it? You don't want to read the handout. That's why we come here. You don't want to know what's in the class before you get here, otherwise there's no point, right? I'm going to do a little bit of an overview of Sheetset Manager, SSM, just to discuss how it works, or how I think it works, all right? And then we'll dive into some best practices, talk about some workflows, what to do, what not to do, that sort of thing. I'll go over some of the SSM variables that you may or may not be aware of that will affect the performance of AutoCAD Sheetset Manager. We'll talk about sheet views. How do we implement them? How do we get them into Sheetset Manager? Some best practices related to the sheet views, how we set them up, how we can automate, streamline that whole process. And then we'll get into the good stuff, the custom tools. All right? Okay. Now, this is where I kind of get a bit of a feel for who we've got out there this morning. Who are the CAD managers in the group? Wow, quite a lot. Power users. Not quite a CAD manager, but you could be a CAD manager. Power users, all right. And then the workhorses. The rest of the group, they're using it on a production basis. Okay. It looks like the majority of you are all CAD managers, so I better have my stuff together. All right. Who is relatively new to Sheetset Manager? Okay. All right. That's okay. That's good. Who are the veterans? It should be the rest of you, right? Yeah. Okay. Now let me get a bit of an idea of how we're using Sheetset Manager at the moment. Who is using all of the functionality built into Sheetset Manager? I'm talking model views, sheet views, the whole thing. Okay. I'm not going to be covering the model view stuff today, all right? That's a whole world of its own. It's a really cool feature set that you can really do some good stuff with, but we won't be covering it today. Who is using sheet views? Wow, not many. You're going to love this class. We talk a lot about sheet views, how we use them. And who is just using it for batch plotting, say? All right. Who's using it just for sheet titles and sheet numbers? All right, excellent. This is just the right cross-section, I think. Some of the more advanced users may get some tips from this. I think it looks like a lot of you should benefit a lot from what we're going to cover today. All right, key learning objectives. All right, some best practices. Going to show you how to streamline the creation of your sheet views and get them set up. Got a little tool that automates that process too. Got a tool that will convert DST file backwards and forwards between an XML. I'll explain why that's going to be useful to you in a little while. We're going to cover a third-party software called Sheetset Properties Editor. Who is familiar with or has heard of this software? Okay, excellent. And lastly, the pièce de résistance, as I'll call it, is something called Sheetset Creator. Okay, it's a fairly new add-on to AutoCAD that was created sometime, I'd say earlier this year. Same people, same guy at JTB World that does the Sheetset Property Editor. I think he just released it commercially on his website. I'm going to show you how it works today. And I actually personally had something to do with the creation of that software. It was a little brainchild, little idea that popped into my head some time ago that I got JTB to help me with. Come on, quicker. Okay, Sheetset Manager. How does it work? It's not magic. We're not pulling rabbits out of hats, okay? As with anything software related, there's logic behind it, and so it's not magic. Basically, the best way I can describe how Sheetset Manager works is it works on linking. It works on links. Okay, you've got Sheetset Manager, which is basically a palette in AutoCAD, sits here, right? It uses DST files. The DST is the extension for a Sheetset file. Inside the DST file lives information that you can then display on your sheets, in your sheet sets. Right? Now, it's a one-way process. Okay? Sheetset Manager does not take information from the drawing file and put it into the sheet set. Okay? You've got to pull the information out of the sheet set into your drawings. And the way we do that is using fields. Are we all familiar with fields? Okay. That's the key. That's the link between the sheet set data and our drawing files. You can put anything you want into the sheet set file. It comes basically out of the box. You are expecting to see a place to put a sheet number, sheet title. There's a whole bunch of other stuff you can start adding to that. All right? So now, as far as the sheets are concerned, the way it works is sheet set links to a layout tab. Okay, it doesn't link to the drawing. It links to a layout tab inside the drawing. What that means effectively is that you could have multiple layout tabs in one drawing file that then show up as multiple sheets in a sheet set. Does that make sense? So sheet set is linking to the layout tabs. All right? And then the sheet views. In a similar fashion, the way you generate sheet views in the Sheetset Manager is you first of all need to have AutoCAD named views in the drawing. Who is not familiar with named views? Not familiar. Okay, well, you will be by the time we leave. That's the key to making the sheet views work. Once again, it's a link. It's a link from the sheet view item, if you will, in the drawing that SheetSet Manager sees and then allows you to modify and use in the sheet set. Okay, you with me so far? It's all making sense? And as I say in the slide, in simple terms, you can look at it as a database manager. All right? So if you, there's some screenshots up there at the moment that kind of show you what some of the pieces of the workflow look like. And yeah, in terms of being a database manager, it's a place where you can store all of your sheet information, your sheet titles, your sheet numbers, revision histories, project name, drafter, checker, designer, all of that stuff can go in one location. That's the beauty of SheetSet Manager. You never if you put all of that data into the SheetSet file, you never have to open a single drawing to edit any of that data. Do you like the sound of that? How much time do we waste opening and closing drawings just to make that little change to that information in the sheets? Especially when we're working on jobs that have big, complex drawings. It can take a couple of minutes to open a drawing up. You have 100, 200 sheets in a set. You start adding that time up. You're now starting to save hours, hundreds of hours a year. It's a big productivity booster. But you've got to be committed to it. Okay? You can use SheetSet Manager in pieces. You can just add pieces of information to the SheetSet Manager. But if you want to take full advantage of it, add everything into it. Okay? Everything that shows up in the title block of your drawings, put it in the SheetSet file. All right? So we're talking a little bit about what it does. Well, it manages sheets. That's why it's called the SheetSet Manager. All right? Just to point out the obvious. I think, but more importantly, it helps you organize the data that's associated with with your sheets. All right? Things like sheet views and model views, which I just touched on. The sheet drawings themselves, the actual layout tabs. Quick question on layouts. Who, in the process of drawing production, who puts multiple layout tabs in their drawing files? You know you're missing out on some performance benefits by doing that. I won't go into too much detail about it, but I will say that if anyone's familiar with the NCS CAD, National CAD Standards, best practices is one layout tab per drawing. Right? And those people that are not using it now are looking at me saying, what are you talking about? It's all there. I've got all my plan series and it's all in one file. That's part of the problem. You put all your eggs in one basket, that ship goes down, you lose all that stuff. But what it does, and this is a little bit of a bonus tip by the way, it doesn't allow you to take advantage of X clipping and index control, which greatly increases the performance of AutoCAD. Who is not familiar with index control? Look it up. It's got a good little help section in AutoCAD. Just look up index control, X clipping. It's amazing how much that speeds up drawing production, especially if you're working on big site projects. You've got 20 sheets, 20 plan sheets to cover the site. You know, if you have all of those plan drawings in one file, all those plan sheets in one file, you can't X-clip anything, right? Because they all have to show up in all of the viewports, in all the layout tabs. All right, so that's a bit of a side note. And lastly, all the sheet information, related data, as we were talking about, helping to organize that stuff. By the way, I sometimes digress, get a little bit sidetracked. I try to keep it relevant, so you know, if you feel like I'm going off topic a little bit too much, just let me know. And lastly, one of the things SheetSet Manager does for us is it helps us automate publishing and archiving, e-transmitting, if you will. All right. Okay, some best practices. Who here works on projects that span multiple offices, multiple locations? Okay, you've probably figured out that I presume you're connected via some sort of WAN. Maybe if you're up north of Canada, it's phone lines. Sorry guys, just joking. Someone said something to me about that the other day. You've probably figured out that you can't share the DST across the WAN effectively, right? Its performance is dismal. AutoCAD comes to a grinding halt in that case. So what you've got to do is figure out a way to share the sheet set file across all those different locations. That has a lot to do with communication and coordination amongst the people you're working with, all right? We can't fix that here. Suffice to say that as far as best practices go, you really need to have a local copy of the sheet set file associated with the drawings you're working on, all right? When you're opening and accessing drawings, accessing sheets, do it through the sheet set manager, right? If you double click on the drawing file in Windows Explorer, there's a chance, especially if you're working across multiple offices, there's a chance that you might end up opening the sheet set associated with that drawing from another location. So to ensure that you get the correct sheet set, open up the sheet file through the sheet set manager. Make sense? You also have to rename your files through the sheet set manager as well. You can't go out to Windows Explorer. Once you've got your sheet set built, you've got all your files attached to it, you have to rename your files through the sheet set manager, because if you rename them through Windows Explorer, what happens? Uses the link, right? Sheet set manager can't find that drawing file now. Another best practice. Sheet templates. When you're creating new drawings, new sheets through the sheet set manager. Makes sense, right? Sheet template has everything in it that you need for your standard drawing. It's a starting point. You can get fancy with sheet templates, by the way. Yes, question?
I was wondering, with the file renaming and attribute editing, how could Sheet Set Manager work with Vault, because it has similar features as Vault?
I can't speak to Vault. I don't use it. So that's a slippery slope. I looked at it and tried, but sorry, I can't answer that question. Yeah. Yeah, you can have a project set up where you've got multiple sheet templates. You might have a sheet template for civil drawings, sheet template for detailed drawings, sheet template for the electrical, mechanical, so on and so forth. That have slightly different pieces of information on it, right? Page setup overrides when you're to automate plotting and publishing. Who uses page setup overrides with their sheet sets? Yeah, that's the way to do it, right? Basically, you have, for those that don't or are unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, you have a template file that contains a bunch of predefined page setups inside the file. Sheet Set Manager sees that. It's an option when you right-click to publish the drawings or publish the sheets. You can choose whatever page setup you want. So if you've got, in simple terms, you may just have a full-size page setup and a half-size page setup for creating PDFs. You choose whichever one you want to use at that time. Very, very straightforward. I won't say simple. Nothing's simple until you know, okay? I don't want to assume that something's easy, right? Because it all comes down to knowledge, all right? But, of course, everything's easy once you know how, right? Rocket surgery, brain science. That was a joke. I mixed them up on purpose. Centralize your sheet data, as I was mentioning earlier. Get all that stuff out of the title block, get it out of the drawings, and dump it into the sheet set file. Your life will be so much better. So much better. Right? Okay, this is a tricky one. How do you, when it comes to the sheet views, for those that don't use it at the moment, probably don't, maybe won't understand this, but when it comes to naming your AutoCAD views, your named views, got to think a little bit about that, all right? I'm going to show you, I'm going to recommend a method for naming your named views as we go forward. You'll either love it and it'll make sense, or you'll come up with your own naming scheme. But what I will talk about is the relationship between the AutoCAD name view and the sheet set sheet view. Because they are the same thing, but they're also not. All right? And I'll make that obvious later. To that end, synchronizing your named views with your sheet views. In general terms, I recommend you keep them lined up. You keep them the same, right? To make it easy for people coming into the drawings to find what that sheet view is linked to in the drawing. And there are benefits to doing that. And I'll demonstrate that too, but it helps with navigation within the drawings. You can get straight to a particular view on a drawing from the sheet set manager just by double-clicking on it. Whoop, bang, takes you straight there. You don't have to worry about what drawing file is, what the name of the drawing is. You just see it in sheet set manager, double-click on it, and you're there, right? For all of the veteran sheet set users, does anybody have any other best practices that they've learned in their experience? Yep. Sure. When you're talking about like indexing drawing numbers, for example, or the actual names. Yep. 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 Sure. Yeah, good point. And that's just a good practice in general when you're naming things, to keep everything numerical. Yes?
Similarly, when you're adding custom properties,
Yes.
it's best to precede them with a number because they sort alphabetically.
Absolutely. And I actually cover that. That's one of the methodologies we figured out. Exactly. A comment was regarding custom properties inside your sheet set file. They get sorted alphabetically, and you have no control over that. So the recommendation was to prefix custom sheet properties with a numbering scheme, an index number. And you'll see that as we work through this stuff. So both excellent suggestions. That also goes to file naming as well, when you're naming files and folders. I don't know who puts dates into their folder names when they're storing data. Say it's incoming information from external sources. You sort it into folders. Using a numerical format that sorts them, forces them to sort in a specific order, is always good practice. And that goes through a lot of the things we do. So good stuff. Anything else? Anyone? Did I actually cover it all? Okay. Sheet set manager variables. Who is familiar with all the sheet set manager variables? Wow. Who knew they even existed? Okay. I can pretty much guarantee you, in AutoCAD, there's a variable for everything. Think about what you're doing, right? I can almost guarantee you'll find a variable that controls how that thing works, whatever it is. Okay, and in this case, we're talking about the sheet set manager. I'll try to just summarize this, so to put it into context for you. SS found, SSM state, and yes, SS found and SSM state. Basically, they're programmatic variables. They're read-only. They're things that you might need to that contain information that you might need to gather if you have a program or some sort of little add-in application, that list routine, VBA, whatever, that you've written that needs to see the state, to see that information. SS locate. This basically tells sheet set manager, right? Bear with me a second. Let me get my bearings on this. Okay. SS locate has two values, on or off. If SS locate is turned on, it tells AutoCAD to open the sheet set file that's associated with that drawing. So inside the drawing, if you have, if that drawing is associated with a sheet set. AutoCAD knows that. If you open up that drawing through Windows Explorer, double-click on it, SS Locate is turned on. It tells AutoCAD to go and find that sheet set file and open it up in Sheet Set Manager. Right? And I think that works in conjunction with SSM Auto Open. All right? Now, as far as performance goes, you can actually improve the performance of Sheet Set Manager with large sheet sets by tweaking a couple of these other settings, these other variables. SSM poll time and sheet status. Okay, I think they work together, I believe. By default, when you are working inside Sheet Set Manager will automatically refresh the contents as the DST file is being modified. So if you've got multiple people working on a project, okay, and everybody has that sheet set file open on their machines, if somebody makes a change to that, Sheet Set Manager is constantly polling the DST file and updating the contents of it. If you don't need to see those changes regularly, you can turn that off. You can tell AutoCAD to not update the sheet set status. Make it manual. And there's a little refresh button in the Sheet Set Manager that you can click on to update the sheet set file if you have that turned off. All right? Poll time works in conjunction with sheet set status because it tells AutoCAD how often to look at the DST and update it. That make sense? Is this kind of what you were expecting so far? Okay, I think I lost one person. I'm not sure.
What settings do you recommend for?
Oh, that's a good question. How long is a piece of string? Sorry, I don't mean to be facetious. It really does depend. If you want to get maximum performance, turn off sheet set status updates. But remember that to refresh the data as needed. Right? And when do you need to refresh the sheet set data? Usually. Before you plot, right? At least. Or if you're going through and someone's checking the drawings and making sure everything is good to go, so to speak. So it really depends. If you've got a huge sheet set file, turning that off makes a huge difference in the performance of AutoCAD. But as with anything software related, experiment with it. Just play with it and just see what it does. You can't break anything beyond recognition. It's just the computer, right? Unless you drop it out of a 4-story window. But then you just get a new computer and reinstall the software and everything works again. Any questions on that stuff? Alrighty. Okay, sheet views. Why do we even need to use them? For cross-referencing. How do we read a set of drawings? All right. How do we get from one sheet to another? How do we know where to go find this detail, find that section, find that elevation? Right? Cross-referencing. Call-out bubbles. Section cuts. Detail bubbles. Elevation bubbles. Okay, we're all familiar with it. Using sheet views allows you to automate that to some extent. So to the point where, once again, the information is stored centrally in the sheet set file. If, for example, you have a set of drawings and you need to change the sheet number of one of those drawings, and somehow that sheet number affects a handful of other drawings because of the cross-referencing, how often have we had to go back in and chase that stuff through a set of drawings? Too often, right? Those last-minute changes. Oh, geez, you've got to squeeze a sheet in there. All of a sudden, your sheet numbers change. Someone's got to go through and make sure all the reference bubbles get picked up. You can eliminate that with Sheet Set Manager. Literally eliminate it. If you have it set up and you're using sheet views, right, you can change the file name of a drawing, and the next time you open any drawings that reference or use the sheet view information, they will automatically be updated with the correct file numbers, sheet numbers, and or sheet, view numbers. Do we all like the sound of that? So everyone's going to run, those people that are not using it at the moment are going to run back to their office, right? And they're going to start using this immediately, right? Good. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see that, right? Navigation. Sheet Manager helps you navigate. If you've got a good file naming scheme and your sheet file numbers, sheet file names match the sheet numbers, it's pretty easy to find the sheets in Windows Explorer, right? But beyond that, if you're using Sheet Manager and everything's in there, you don't need to use Windows Explorer. You can go to a specific view on a specific sheet just by double-clicking on the sheet view entry in the Sheet Manager. Right? And and if you've got it set up properly, it'll actually take you to the location on the sheet where the view is. That's kind of cool, right? Helps with organization. Obviously, we kind of discussed that to some extent. What's the bottom line? Productivity, right? What are we all striving to do in our daily lives, in our workplace? We're trying to be better. Well, at least I hope we are. Is everyone trying to be better at what they do? Because you should be trying to be better at what you do every day, right? But we want to be more productive. Well, I think we want to be more productive. Who does not want to be more productive? That's probably an easy way to look at it. Okay, good, excellent, right, we're on the same page. That's the bottom line. What this does is this really, really makes has a huge effect on your productivity. It's one of those things that has been introduced. How often have we seen all these new whiz-bang features in the software that we never use? Because it doesn't apply to what we do, or just because maybe it's just too complicated. Sheet Manager is complicated. I'm not going to lie to you. But everything's complicated until you know how it works, as I was saying earlier. All right? There is a learning curve. Those of you that are not using it, that need to go out and figure out how to use it, be prepared to get frustrated in the beginning. Okay? But when the light bulb comes on and you figure it out, okay, you'll be like the rest of the people in here that are using it now and swear by it. Who swears by Sheet Manager and would not do a job without it? Okay. Thank you. Don't you hate it when the speaker keeps asking you to stick your hand in the air? Like, I don't want to do that. I had a late night. Right, all right, yeah, I did. Okay. Thanks for participating, by the way. I appreciate it. It does help. It helps me if I can see that it's registering. All right? And it's okay to fall asleep too if it gets that boring, because I've done it. But if someone, the person next to the person is falling asleep, you can give them one of those. All right? I'd appreciate it. Okay, creating sheet views. I think most of you basically said that you don't use named views, right? You're not using sheet views. The way it works is this. In simple terms, and I'm going to go into the software and demonstrate this, all right? In simple terms, to have a sheet view in Sheet Manager, you need to have an AutoCAD named view in the drawing. It's that simple. As soon as you create the named view in AutoCAD, it automatically shows up in the Sheet Manager. It's kind of nice. It's good that way, right? It doesn't make you go and find that. It's just automatic. I'm going to show you that. Yep, I'm going to go through. I'm going to demonstrate some stuff on the screen. This isn't. Oh, by the way, I didn't say this in the beginning. This isn't all just slideshow. I have to do this part of it first to sort of give you some background, so that when I do look in the software, it has context. All right. Okay. The best practice that I was alluding to earlier on about naming your sheet views, and I don't. It's not on the screen. It should be on this. It should be on this slide. Who is familiar with the drawing area coordinate system on a sheet? A, B, C, D, E on the rows, number columns. It was on the previous slide. Ah, thank you. Yeah, excellent, awesome, thanks. I can't keep up with myself. This, if you see up here, I'm going to, no, I'm not even going to try and use the pointer. Because it'll be all over the place. These numbers down here are the columns for the grid. We're all familiar with grids, right? Use them all the time. This is what's called the Drawing Area Coordinate System, DACS, right? DACS. By the way, DACS are a colloquial term for pants in Australia, right? So I've got my DACS on, right? You don't want to be seen in public without your DACS on, right? Or at least you better have some underwear, okay? So DACS, D-A-C-S. Basically what I'm illustrating on the sheet here is that if you're following national CAD standards, who uses national CAD standards to some extent, if at all? Yeah, okay, 20% maybe. Who has not heard of the national CAD standards? Yeah, see, you're all defiant. You don't want to use it, do you? You all know it's there, but you're like, no, I've got my stuff, and I'm not going to use that because I know what I'm doing with this, right? But you'll probably find who does not have CAD standards in their company? That's okay. That's okay. Are you working on it?
Yeah. We are very happy with none.
That's okay. Yeah, at the comment, I think someone just said you just need a bigger bat, right? I'm guessing you're a pretty small company? Yes. Yeah, okay. That's the only way you can get away with it, okay? Once you start getting beyond a certain threshold, you can operate without CAD standards, but you won't operate very well, all right? And everyone will be at each other's throats because when everybody goes in everyone else's drawings, nothing will be where it's supposed to be, nothing will be on the right layer, and it's just chaos, all right? I'm a big proponent of CAD standards, as you might well tell, and I think everyone else is. I'm not giving you a hard time. Yeah, yeah. Sorry? Thank you. So, drawing area coordinate system. Use the drawing area coordinate system to number your views, right? So, just to get some terminology right here, we're actually ahead of schedule, so I can afford to go sideways a little bit. Thanks. At least I think I am. No, we're good. We're good. Give me 2 seconds. Let me check up on this. Where are we at? Oh, yeah, miles ahead. We're good. Views. Let me just get the terminology down. Okay, a view in sheet set terms is, it can be a detail. It can be a section. It can be a plan. All right? It's an area on your drawing that you might need to reference from another drawing. Does that make sense? That's the terminology. So when you number your views, right, one of the questions was with respect to view numbering, right? Your question implied that you're just using a straight-up numbering system for your views? Sheet numbers or view numbers? Yeah, but the question is, are you using the drawing area coordinate system to number your views, or are you just using numbers for them? Right. Okay, so that's a situation where the drawing area coordinate system maybe isn't used, although you could potentially have numbers on the columns and in the rows, right? Anyway, the point being, was there a question? Sorry. What this does, by using the drawing area coordinate system to number your views, it does a couple of things for you, right? First of all, the thing to remember is that in this case here, this is the format. The view number is on top, and the sheet number is on the bottom. All right? Who uses a bubble format where you have 2 sheet numbers on the bottom? The second sheet number is redundant. Okay? The key is that the combination of this number and the sheet number makes that sheet view number unique within the drawing set. Okay, and in terms of navigation and how you use it, the sheet that shows the view of, say, the detail, yes, the sheet that shows the view of the detail. Why is that sticking up like that? I'm going to go this up in a minute. The sheet. Where are we going with this? Okay, the sheet that has the view on it, right, has the sheet, the view number. The sheet number that's at the bottom of the bubble is where the detail is being referenced from, right? You go to that sheet, that will be different because it'll still be the same view number, but the sheet number in there will be the sheet that the detail is shown on. So it's a circular reference. Does that make sense?
The idea behind that is for contractors. So what you have is that the first number indicates the view, let's say, that the plan was placed on. The first sheet that's on. There's a section mark
Yes.
on that sheet. And
Yeah.
when you get to the sheet where the section is, it refers back to the sheet that the plan was first placed on.
Correct.
In order to reference where that section is cut, because when you're at the section,
Correct.
where is this cut?
Exactly. And what? Oh, absolutely. What it does is it shows you whereabouts on the project that detail exists, right? The section or the detail or the elevation, whatever, right? Enlarged plans. Basically the way you create a set of drawings is it's like landing a helicopter. You come in from outer space. It's pretty fancy helicopter, right? And you drop down, and as you work your way through the set of drawings, you're getting closer and closer and closer and closer until you get to the last set, the last drawings, the last sheets, which are all your details, right? That's the analogy. So you're basically, a lot of people only reference forward, but that back reference helps people figure out where all the stuff actually lives in the project. Make sense? Does that kind of explain it a little bit more? Correct. Yep. So this is, and then in sheet set manager terms, you can use the sheet views to automatically jump to and navigate through the drawing set. All right.
What happens if that detail is used for more than one plan?
Then you have multiple sheet numbers referencing back. When you actually have to put in a back reference, you have to manually place that in using the sheet set manager. Using the fields, and I'll demonstrate that. But yeah, if you've got multiple sheets that reference the same detail, you'll have multiple back references to all the different sheets to show it. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Keep the name view and the sheet view names the same. If you have to change the number, now what I'm suggesting is that you create your AutoCAD name views using the drawing area coordinate system numbers, all right? So that when you go to and then you line up the coordinates of the locations on the sheets, and then when you look in the name view, it is exactly the same as what the sheet view name is. Because here's the thing. As soon as you create the name views in AutoCAD, Sheet Set Manager sees them. You can now go to the Sheet Set Manager and change the information related to those sheet views, and it will not change the named view. So you can have a situation where your named view was created as A1, the sheet view was A1, but at some point maybe it changed location on the sheet, became C3, right? You updated the sheet view to C3, but it's still pointing to the named view A1. That can get confusing, right? That's why I say it's good practice to keep the names synchronized. Now, it does take a little bit of work, all right? And you're not going to want to do it. I know you're not, because I don't do it all the time, all right? But it does help a lot when you're having to navigate through the drawings, especially if someone comes in new and they're trying to figure out what detail on the sheet that's referencing from the Sheet Set Manager. It makes it much easier to find. I'm going to show you a little tip too, by the way, that you may not be aware of. How do you determine what name view that sheet view is pointing at? All right. Custom tools. Did I accidentally click that? Sorry, I was excited. I was pushing the button. Nobody said anything. You just let me go through that. Okay, streamlining views. All right, it's a manual process. To create these views in AutoCAD, you have to go into the view manager and you have to create the views there so they show up in the sheet set. One of the ways you can streamline that is by adding the views to the template ahead of time, so that when you create a new sheet through the sheet set manager, it already has all of the named views in it. Make sense? Now, if you are retrofitting an old project into sheet set manager, what does that mean? I've got an existing project. I want to use sheet set manager to maybe streamline publishing. All right? It's really quick and easy to get all of those sheets into a sheet file. All right? But if you then want to take it a step further, depending on the stage of the project, if it's fairly early and you want to transition in the sheet set, you may now also want to use the sheet view option and start retrofitting, if you will, those drawings. Okay, for want of a better term. I have a little list routine that automates that. Type in the command, creates the sheet views automatically. All right? And I'll show you that in a minute. Well, make sense so far? Haven't lost anyone? Interesting? No? No. It's boring. Okay. Now what I want to do now, I think, is go into... I'm going to go into... Back out of this for a sec. I'm going to go into AutoCAD. I think the impression I got was that the majority of people are not using the sheet views, right? So what I want to do is show you how to create it in AutoCAD, how to create the name views in AutoCAD, and then kind of show you how all that works and synchronizes up with the sheet set manager. All right? 245. Okay. No, sorry. I didn't preset my screen for the big resolution. Okay. All right, there's several ways to get to the view manager in AutoCAD. From the drop-down, named views, all right? If you're a ribbon user, it's in the View tab. It's in here, okay? So let's just duck in here and take a look and see what we're working with. Okay, this sheet currently has a bunch of named views already existing inside. All right, they're populating the dialog box. One of the cool things that you can do is you can quickly get to a view just by clicking on it up here in the ribbon. So if you're on a sheet that has a lot of details, you can quickly get to that detail just by clicking on the named view. Similarly, within the sheet set manager, right, so just to explain for those that are not using sheet views, the sheet view tab is where you would go to organize, manage all the sheet view data related to the sheets. All right. So as you can see, there's a lot of sheet views in here. Now the sheet that I'm currently on is A301. So does anyone know how to automatically collapse all of these sheet views? For some reason, Sheet Set Manager wants to expand everything. It's like, hey, look at me. And it's not easy to collapse all that stuff. I mean, a lot of programs have a way to just collapse a tree, right? So I'm kind of having to collapse each one of these. It's a pain in the butt. At the moment, let me go back up here for a sec. In the Named Views dialog box, okay, I have a separate named view for every grid square, right, on this sheet, based on the drawing area coordinate system numbering. Make sense? Now, I don't necessarily need to use all of those views, but what that is that's a starting point for me. Right? It gives me a bunch of targets on the sheet that I can use to create my sheet views. Right? At some point down the track, as the drawing develops and you develop content and the drawing becomes somewhat stable in terms of development, you've kind of filled the drawing out as much as you're going to, you can just go in and delete the rest of the views you don't need. Right? Now, so one of the things you can do from the Sheet Set Manager is I can double click on the sheet view, and it takes me to that location on the sheet. Right? Now, at the moment, they're not linked up properly because it's not taking me to the actual area on the sheet where my views are actually stored. Okay? But I will show you one that does work in a minute. So as far as creating the views, name views, what you would typically do in a manual process, you'd open up the view manager. Okay? Let me do this. Let me just delete all of these out of here for a second. It's that easy. Okay? Create a new view. I click new. I give it a name. Say A1, whatever it is. This process works for model views as well. All right? It's good practice, by the way, to use views in a lot of cases because it's a quick way to get to a particular area inside your drawing. You know, if you're working on big site plans and you've got maybe some stuff off to the side you want to get to, it can help with organizing stuff. The command was, well, it's view. Yeah. So, no. Deview, hang on. Sorry. What's the command? View. Okay? But you can get there from the drop-down, you can get there from the ribbon as well. So basically the process is come in here, new, give it a name, whatever you want it to be. Let me get rid of the other ones that are in there first, sorry. Actually, let me do this. Just go to a new sheet. So I'm in a sheet that actually has no named views at the moment, all right? So what I would do is I'd come in here, select new. Sorry for jumping around. Give it a name. Define the window. So which part of the drawing do you want that view, named view, to be associated with? I typically recommend turning off the layer snapshot thing because what you can actually do, you can actually save a view and you can associate the current layer state with that view. So if you actually go back to that view, it'll reinstate the layers based on the snapshot at the time you created it. It's kind of dangerous, right? Because you might end up reverting the layer state back to something it shouldn't be. I turn it off just to avoid that potential issue. There's a couple of other options in here I won't go into, but and it's as simple as that. And then once you've done that, you click OK. And if we look at the resulting dialog box, here are the coordinates, the view coordinates of the view. Right? It's just an area inside the drawing. And here's other information associated with it. All right? That's all we need. Once we've done that, right, that sheet that I just did that on is not part of the sheet set, right? So I can't demonstrate, but that sheet view then automatically pops up in the drawing. All right? So just to illustrate the other tool, so let me do this. In the sheet set, I'm going to create a new sheet. Now I have some stuff already preset. I have a template file in here. So let me call this C-909. Oh, give it a title. I'm not worried about the file name at this point. I've got the checkbox open in Editor, so I can open the drawing immediately. So this is the sheet template that's associated with the sheet set manager. All right, just for those that don't know, if you go to the properties of the sheet set, right down the bottom, come on, is the location for your sheet set, your sheet creation template. All right. Has anybody noticed anything else on the screen? Trying to take things too seriously. And no, I am not Moneybags. I wish I was. So that's where you set up. That's where you tell Sheet Set Manager where to find the default sheet creation template. If you want to be able to choose a different template when you create a new sheet, make sure the option is set to no for prompt. Sorry, no, yes. Set to yes. So if you want to be able to choose from a different template, set the prompt to yes, and then AutoCAD will give you an option to choose a template other than the default. Make sense? The path can be anywhere you want. by default, AutoCAD will default to your template folder in your options if you're using DWTs. You can point it anywhere. Yeah, I've just got this pointed in my local drive because I need this to be portable for the demonstration. But you can point it anywhere. Yeah. By the way, just a little tip. A drawing template doesn't have to end with a DWT extension. Okay, it ends in DWT because that tells somebody that that's a template file. But here's the issue. If I double-click on that template file to modify it in any way, AutoCAD will create a new drawing using the template. It won't actually open the template file up. So if you're having to tweak a template, constantly open and close it, instead of having to go through the File Open dialog box in AutoCAD, if you've just got it on in Windows Explorer and you want to double-click on it, make it a DWG file. It's just a little thing to make it easier to get in and out of that template drawing. Of course, once your template drawing is fixed, you shouldn't have to be doing that on a regular basis, right? But just a little tip while you're developing them. So that's where you set the template in properties. So I've just created the new sheet. You'll see that this already has views associated with it. All right. I'm going to quickly do this. I'm going to change the properties here for a second. I'm going to change this to yes. All right. I'm going to now create a new sheet. This time it'll prompt me. Now I'm going to just browse out to another sheet template that I have just for the demonstration. It's in here. Okay, I've created this template that has no views in it, just for the sake of the demonstration. All right. The whole thing here is I'm just trying to show the process of how you create name views and how we're going to automate it. Okay. So now when I open this drawing up, the reason the border is missing is because it's pointing to an XREF that doesn't exist. Look at the views. There are no views in here. Okay. I could go. So the process to create the view I just showed you, so that's all fairly straightforward, right? If I type in this command, SSV, I now have all of my predefined named views based on my CAD standards for the sheet, our standard sheet. All right, I'm going to give the code. I'm going to post the code up. It's a simple. It's a straightforward Lisp routine. Okay, it just invokes the view command and basically defines a bunch of views based on the drawing area coordinate system for our standard sheet. So if you want to use that, you think it's something that will be useful to you, what you can do. Let's take a look at the code. The question is, where did I put it? It is on the PowerPoint. Sorry. Does anyone remember where I placed it? There it is. Thank you very much. I'm not sure we can see it. Can we all see that? So basically, if you find this useful to you, you want to take this back, you just need to modify these coordinates. Right? They're the two corner coordinates that define the views within the drawing. So if you've got a different drawing, different standard sheet, you can just go in there and modify those numbers to match your drawing grid, and away you go. If you're using the sheet set manager and you're creating new sheets using the sheet templates with predefined views, you don't need this, right? But if you want to set something up on drawings that exist, that already have content, this is the way to automate it. Is that cool? Pretty basic, right? But it's one of those little productivity enhancers. Yep. I don't know. Yeah, we don't need to go down there. The code works as it stands. If we don't want to bore everyone with the details of Lisp. Yes, you're right. There should be a space in there. Yep, set Q. Yes, correct. So for anyone that's interested in Lisp, the syntax on this example is incorrect. All right? Sorry? Yes, I got nothing. Okay, sorry. I'm lucky I got myself here. Okay, makes sense so far? All right. Alrighty. Where are we at? So we looked at creating the sheet. We looked at creating the name views and the sheet views. We talked about how to name, or how to number the views. That's what we were going to do. We're going to look at the sheet set manager. So I created a new drawing, right, that had no sheet views in it. All right. So if I now go to the sheet view tab and I look at that drawing, wherever that is. Sorry, I just added the sheet views. I should have looked at this before I added the sheet views, right? Before I added the sheet views, it had no views in there. All right, so let me do this. Give me 2 secs. Let me create a new drawing. Let's get that new view, the one without the views. Okay. Lucky 7. Subliminal messages. Well, if you need to reference to that view on that sheet, then the answer is yes. There's a benefit because you can generate the view title block and the information within it. So yes. The question was, is there any benefit using the sheet views if you only have one view on a sheet? The simple answer, I think, is yes, if you need to reference to or from that sheet or to that view, right? So, new drawing. It doesn't show up in the sheet set manager. It doesn't show up in the sheet view tab, right? Why doesn't it show up? There are no views. Okay, as soon as I populate the sheet with any named views, they will show up. And then I can start using them. So let's just quickly look at that. So if I type my little nifty SSV command, that should actually be speeding through that at a much more rapid rate. Now you can see they've automatically shown up in the sheet set manager. Okay. Now at this point, by default, what AutoCAD does is it uses the view name, the named view name for the view name. Sorry. The AutoCAD name view has a description. It has a label, the view name label, right? C1. By default, Sheet Set Manager uses that for the view name. So if you look at the dialog box, on the left is the number, and on the right is, the view title. Sorry, my mistake. The view title has taken on the name of the view from AutoCAD. But we actually want that to be the number, right? And then this becomes something else, whatever it is, section, detail, elevation, right? View number. Now, let's take a look. So what I've done here is I've just updated that one sheet view, right, which is linked to that name view. At this point, I can add a view label block, which, by the way, is at a different scale. Let me do this. Let me go to a drawing that actually works. So A301, if I go to that drawing, if I have a view, I can right-click, place a label block on the drawing, okay? The label block automatically gets populated with the view name, view number, the view title. Now the sheet number at the bottom of that bubble is the sheet number that you're on, because Sheet Set Manager doesn't know where that detail came from, is being referenced from. That's where you have to do a back reference. If you have to do a back reference at this point, you would modify this, right? Open up the field, which is in a multi-line editor, by the way. And then at this point, you could scroll to the other drawing that you're back referencing to, okay? Tell it you just want to use the sheet number, hit OK, and basically replace that. So that now back references to that other sheet. Does that make sense? That's the manual override you have to perform. Now, if I'm referencing forward, it's all automatic, because if I go to sheet A101, for example, here, and I need to reference forward to, in this case, the section, I would come into the sheet view manager over here, go to the sheet that has the view on it that I want to reference to, right-click on it, and place a call-out block. In this case, I've got two call-out blocks. I've got a call-out bubble and a section mark, which doubles up as an elevation mark as well through a dynamic block. So if I place the section call-out here, right, that's now pointed to the sheet that details on, the section's on. Does this make sense? Now, if I change the number of that, drawing, anything that has this information in it throughout the drawing set will automatically update. So if you go in here, for example, and on A301, I need to renumber that to say I don't have a 302, to A302, right? It's changed in the sheet set manager. It will not update in the field until you regen, plot. What controls that, okay, are your field options. So you go into the AutoCAD options. I can't remember where it is. Okay, user preferences, field update settings. This is what controls how those fields are updated. So for example, here everything's checked on. If I open the drawing, the fields are updated. If I save it, if I plot it, okay. I had a situation, interesting, where somebody opened up a drawing and the call-out bubbles weren't updating with the sheet set information. They actually had the open option unchecked. So when they opened the drawing, the fields weren't updating and they weren't synchronizing with the sheet set data. I don't know why that was turned off, because that should never be turned off, right? So that's where you modify those field update settings in there, all right? So now if I do a regen, you see the sheet number changed, okay? And if this happens in multiple sheets throughout the drawing, how much time can that save you? It's not only the time. What you're also doing is you are eliminating the embarrassment associated with bad information on drawings, all right? We've all been there? Yes? Yes. Correct. I can also place it in the model space. I can place that anywhere in the drawing, model space or paper space. So, which is a good question, because how do you set up your drawings? Do you annotate everything in the model space? Or do you annotate a mixture of model space and paper space?
But doesn't the field not update when it's in model space?
No, it updates. So I can place that call-out block into the model. So if I come in here, as long as I know what the scale of my view is, I can place that in here. I can't remember what the scale is. So if, let's say I place a call-out bubble in here, I think it's 0.1. It still works. Sorry, the scale's all out of whack because I can't remember the drawing scale, but that works in the model space as well. Okay. How you set up your drawings, right, where you put everything. Personally, I try to put all my annotation in the model space. I keep it with the geometry that I'm annotating, and the only thing that sits in the sheet are sheet-specific notes, border, that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that's the way you should all do it. I just think from an efficiency perspective, that's the way we've found works the best. Okay, and then what that does is that makes that content portable. You know, you don't have the separation of space between the annotation and the geometry. So if you need to move that detail and all its annotation dimensions with it, you just copy, paste it out into another drawing. You have to jump through hoops to get everything back into the one space. Okay? Make sense? Okay, that's the sheet view stuff. Now, let's do this. Let's jump forward a bit. Demonstrate the DST to XML tool is very, very straightforward. All right? The way it works is this, and I should have had that handy. This is in Converter. This is a JTB World application. What it does, it converts a DST file to XML format. All right? And everyone's sitting there wondering, why would I want to do that? Right? Has anyone ever run across a problem where the sheet set file becomes excessively large and things come to a grinding halt? I call it the sheet set bloat issue. What happens is, somewhere along the line, the sheet set file gets corrupted, and it ends up with a bunch of data inside of it that blows it up, I don't know, 50 times its normal size. A 1 meg DST file becomes 50 meg, right? Keep your eye on that. If you get that situation, what you can do, you can use the XML converter, convert the DST to XML, find the nodes, the bad nodes in the XML file, and delete and remove them. And the way you do that is, once you've got the XML file converted, so let me do this. Let me grab one of the DST files we're working on here. And so I open that up, convert that, okay. Now what should have happened is I should have a file, an XML file in the same folder where the DST file was. So in this case here, I'm in the wrong place, sorry. Here, this is where my sheet set was. So what's happened is it's created this XML file, all right? If you open up this XML file, you need an XML editor, right? You can download XML Notepad from Microsoft for free, all right? You'll need this in order to do this trick. Open the file. Is everyone familiar with XML at all? Just at least the format. You don't have to be an expert. Basically what you do is you just navigate down to and this information is in the handout. There's a very specific node that contains the bad data. All right? And if I look at the presentation, it is here. And it's this. Okay? There is a node in the tree, there's a couple of them, called ACSM publish options. Under there, I don't know if it's always 2 instances of this. The trouble files I've had have had 2 instances of this, and it's this thing called ACSM custom property bag. That's not my bag, baby. Right? Who's Austin Powers fan here? That's not mine. Anyway, that's that. Fairly straightforward. Go in there, delete those 2 nodes from the XML file. Use the XML converter to convert the XML file back to DST. Your problem solved. All right? Okay. Now I'm running behind. All right, sheet set property editor. Let's do this. Let's get into this. Okay, we have software called, this is sheet set property editor. Okay, I've got 17 minutes to bang this out. By the way, I'm more than happy to answer questions afterwards. There's 2 things. Was a question? Yes, it's sorry, I should have clarified. That is software that you can get from jtbworld.com. I believe I have a reference to the website in the handout. Okay, but if I don't, JTB World, just search the internet and you'll find the website. That's where you'll find that tool. It may be too, yes. The property editor? Yeah. Okay, this is the sheet set property editor, okay? What this does is this allows you to modify the properties of a DST, all right? And you're going to want to hang on for the next one, by the way. The next one is the sheet set creator. I'm saving the best for last, all right? So I just want to let you know that now before everyone starts exiting en masse. I got a little bit behind, I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of this. If you find it's of any use to you, we use it all the time. right? Because all of our sheet set data is in our DST file, if we need to make global changes to that, the fastest way for us to do that is to use this tool. Modifying custom properties through the sheet set manager is very tedious and time consuming. If you've got custom properties, this is the way to do it. It automatically indexes your drawing sheets, and it has a bunch of other features that I won't go into in a lot of detail. I just want to show you how it works in general, and then we'll get into the sheet set creator, okay? Open the file. So let's get to one of our DST here. Open that up. It's asking me if I want to create a backup, usually a good idea in case I screw something up. Okay, so what you're seeing is something fairly familiar, sheets on the left, but now I'm getting all of my data on the right-hand side of the window, okay? Custom properties, all the default properties, it's all there. Now, one of the good things, one of the things that I mentioned in the handout is that you can do a global edit. Let's say you need to change the drafter's initials for a group of sheets. Instead of going into the custom properties for every one of those sheets through Sheet Set Manager, you can do it here in one go, right? So what you would do is you would grab the sheets, for example, that you want to modify, come down to, say, whatever field it is, whatever piece of information you need to change. Notice how it says varies in the field? It's because all of those sheets, that property in those sheets contains different information, all right? That's all that's telling you. If I want to change that to something else, I'd change it. Okay, now when I go back and look at those sheets, that information has been changed for all of those sheets. Okay, it's pretty cool, right?
Does it work in the regular properties as well? In the same way?
Sheet properties, yes. Yes, the regular properties. I'm just...
You can go up to the revision number and
Correct. Absolutely, yes. Anything that you see in here, okay, you can modify. You can do one sheet, you can do 100 sheets. All right? Paths. This is one of the cool things. See all that path information up there? Expected path, found path, relative path, full path. That's information that you do not see using the Sheet Set Manager. This is important if you're working on projects that span across multiple offices. If you've got a copy of that sheet set, multiple copies of the sheet set, one in each office, right? Whoever created that sheet set will probably have a full path that points to their server. The UNC name with the server name, okay? You don't want to open up that sheet file and have it go across the WAN to the other office to start pulling information from that sheet set, okay? So one of the things you can use this tool for is to strip out all of the UNC paths from the DST file. Go in there, select the sheets, delete the UNC path. Does everyone know what UNC path is? I think Universal Naming Convention. It's the full path to the server, the share name, okay? You can use this tool, strip them out, okay? And that way, your local copy, you know for sure that isn't going to go start looking across the WAN for files, all right? Another cool feature this thing has is the indexing. Sorry? Yep. You'll have to ask. Well, yeah, no, the relative path is, some of these paths are dynamically update. When you open the DST file, for example, it depends on how you set up the sheet set to begin with. How you created the subsets. If you've used a foldering scheme for your subsets within your sheet set, that relative path may point to a subfolder that's outside of the DST folder. But this can all be modified to suit the application, all right? The other big feature is the sheet indexing, okay? Who uses sheet indexing on their drawings? Sheet number X of Y. Okay? A lot of us. If you're not using it, you probably should be, because it's a really easy way to find the location of a drawing in a big package. Let's just say you create a sheet set, you create a bunch of drawings, you've got a PDF file, It's got 250 sheets in it. But the numbering scheme doesn't tell you whereabouts, the sheet numbering doesn't tell you whereabouts in the package that sheet is. The index number tells you where it is. So from the PDF, if you know what the index number of the drawing is, you can go directly to that sheet using the navigator in PDF, in the PDF reader, Acrobat. All right? So how do I automatically update the sheet indexes, the sheet index numbers in my drawing? I use the sheet indexing tool. So if you look here, I have a custom field called index number, all right? That's linked through my attribute block to this. Up the top, there is a sheet indexing tool, okay? By using this, all right, I can update the index numbers for a group of sheets, all of the sheets. I've got multitude of choices here. In this case, I'm going to renumber all the index numbers. I'm going to start at, say, 100. Let's just say this is a subset of a larger set of drawings and you're a subconsultant to another company. And your sheets are numbers 100 through 105. Okay? Come in here. The value length is the number of significant digits it uses. So in this case, I'm going to use 3 because I have 3 digits in my number. I'm going to use an increment of 1. I can use a prefix and a suffix if I want to. I'm going to leave it blank. I hit OK. Right? If I now look, all of my index numbers have been updated. Right? How long is it going to take you to re-index 100 sheets if you have to open and close the drawing every time? Okay? Big time saver, right? And what this does is this takes this out of the equation for you. You don't have to worry about indexing your sheets because you can just wait till the last minute and do it before you plot the set. Right? Okay. If you're interested, go take a look at this, dig into it a little bit more. That's the key functionality, global editing, automatic indexing. There's a couple of other tools in there, incrementing values and stuff like that. What I want to do is just now jump into the sheet set creator. Right? Who's here solely to see this? The sheet set creator. Okay. There's one. Oh, yeah, no, you'll see. Here's the way it works, okay? For those that are using the sheet set manager, you understand the process. To create sheets, you've got to add the sheets to the sheet set file. You've got to go in and type in the sheet numbers, type in the drawing, the sheet titles, type in all that information. As you update it, you go back in there, you change it, okay? What the sheet set creator does is it streamlines the initial project drawing creation. Okay, the process of creating the initial drawing set. All right? We typically should start with a drawing list. If we plan ahead, right? Who plans their drawing sets ahead of time? Who starts with a drawing list of some form? Yeah. Okay. It's only a small percentage of people that do. Before you actually start creating a set of drawings, you need to have a drawing list. Okay, you need to have a roadmap of where you're going with this set of drawings. You need to know what the objective is, what are you building, what are you designing, whatever. Have your drawings set up, have your sheet numbers, your sheet titles, all that good stuff, right? If you have that, it's typically in an Excel format. Okay, the engineer or the PM might have created as part of the cost proposal process, generated some sort of basic drawing list that you then expand upon line for line for all the sheets. If you have that sheet list in Excel, this tool, Sheet Set Creator, will convert that to a DST file, add all of the information in the Excel spreadsheet, and build the sheets from a template. Does anyone like the sound of that? All right. Let's hope it works. All right. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to show you what it does. I already have, it's a DLL file, I've already got it built into my system here. I'm just going to type the command. 6 minutes, pushing it right down to the end here. Okay, it's what's my spreadsheet? So I'm going to just use the small example here. So what it's doing is asking me for the location of the Excel file. I've just told it where that is. I'm going to go into this a little bit more detail before we walk out of here in a few minutes, all right? It's telling me that the sheet set folder doesn't exist, so go ahead and create it. You'll see a bunch of stuff flashing around down the bottom. It's not sophisticated. It doesn't give you a progress bar. All right? It's actually doing something. How do I know it's doing something? If you're processing a large set of drawings, you can just go to the folder where it's supposed to be creating the drawings and see it happening. So what's happened here is I have the sheet set folder. This folder was just created using the sheet set creator. Okay, didn't exist before. I don't know if anyone noticed while I was navigating through, but you'll have to trust me, it didn't exist. Okay. It's created a DST file, and it's created a bunch of sheets. That alone should be worth some sort of recognition, right? You're not kind enough to me. How does it work? Do we want to know how it works? Of course we do, right? We're CAD geeks, right? Well, let me first of all do this. Let me open up the sheet set file. One thing it does not do, it's built the sheet set. It's automatically numbered and titled the sheets based on the contents of the Excel spreadsheet I'm going to show you. There are no sheet views at the moment. There are actually sheet views in those drawings, right, because the template contains them, but they won't start to show up in here until I open the drawings up. Because at this stage, I haven't opened any of those sheets yet inside of AutoCAD, right? And if I look in at the properties of the sheet set, and this illustrates what a comment that was made earlier, it contains all of these custom properties. Okay, that if I had to do by hand could take some time. Of course, the other method would be to use a DST template that already has all them predefined. Right? The key here is that those custom properties have the index numbers in front of them, as we were talking about earlier. Okay, they're automatically sorted into groups. So all of my revision 1 fields are together, all my revision 2 fields are together, so on and so forth. Okay, so there's some logic to the naming scheme here. But SSC, she said, created this DST file. Okay, it's built all of this automatically. Now let's take a look at the spreadsheet, since we've got 4 minutes. Where is it? Here. Okay. You need this spreadsheet to make this work. Okay. The highlighted cells are the key pieces of information the sheet set creator needs. All right. It needs. That screen's too big for me to look up at. It needs to know the folder where you want to store the sheet set file, the DST file. It also needs to know where you want to store the drawings, okay, the sheet storage location. And then it wants to know what template file to use to create the new drawings. And finally, it needs to know the name of the layout tab inside that template. Okay, all of that stuff has to match up exactly, or it won't work. Okay, it's not sophisticated. It doesn't give you a dialog box, allow you to browse out. Okay, it's very geeky. You've got to get in there and key that stuff in. Okay, once that's done, there's a whole bunch of other peripheral information you can include as well. You can come in here, add any number of sheet custom properties to this list that you want. Okay, so I can modify this and add to it. So that's the sheet custom properties tab. You've got the sheet custom properties down here, right? You can actually modify this list and have as many custom properties as you want, or as few, all right? That's what will end up in the DST file that gets created. Yes, when you, if you do end up, if you do purchase the software, that it comes with, he bundles some templates with it. So yes, there will be an Excel template that comes with the program as a starting point. And if anyone finds this of any use, feel free to call me too if you have any questions about it. All right. And the sorry. No, it's an add-on program. You got to purchase it. Okay. JTB World. Yeah, the sheet set property editor, the sheet set creator, DST converter are all from JTB World. All right? I'm not a JTB pimp, okay? We use their stuff. I personally helped him develop the sheet set creator. All right? He wrote the code. I just came up with the idea and helped him develop it. And last but not least, the data, the sheet information. Okay? So for every sheet custom property that you have in that tab, if you have an equivalent column for it in the sheet list, that information will automatically be populated from the spreadsheet.
So does the template for the actual sheet have to have all the fields pre-generated?
The template for the sheet?
Like if you treat sheet that you created, layout
Oh, no, let's look at the sheet template. The sheet template actually has an attribute block in it that has all of the fields that point to our standard custom properties. The sheets exist, the fields exist in the attribute block in the sheet template. If there's no data to go into the fields, they're just blank on the sheet. But their placeholders are there if you need to add to them. So just so you can see what the sheet template looks like. Now it's important that your sheet template, hang on a sec. Why is it not opening? Do I have a dialog box open somewhere? Sheet set properties is open. Sorry about that. So this is the sheet template that the sheet set creator uses. It's also the same sheet template that I use for my sheet set files that we were going through before. If you look at the block, that's the attribute block, okay? This is the other piece that you need to make this all work. You have to have an attribute block. You can use text, because you can put a field anywhere. I recommend using an attribute block. One place, one block. All of these attributes have a field that points to their specific custom sheet property, okay? Everything's matched up. They have to be, your references to the sheet property has to be exact. Otherwise, the data won't come across. Okay, remember how I said it's a one-way process? The data comes from the sheet set into the drawings via the field. You have to make sure the custom properties point to the appropriate custom property. Right?
What about the issue with when you have a custom property to a field and you get the AE, recognize the field I see that a lot.
Custom property displays.
So you have a field in a to attribute, match an attribute, for custom property in your sheet set manager. I use use the template, bring it into the sheet set, it's not recognizing any custom properties.
Check the names. Check the names of the, check the field properties and make sure that the name matches exactly with the custom property. That's all I can think of offhand without looking at it. You get an error message in the field? It could be a bad character, because sheet set manager doesn't like certain characters, right? You've got to be careful about that. Actually, I had an interesting problem happen the other day. Somebody had put the hash symbol into the sheet title, okay? The hash mark. In the drawing index, in the sheet index, when I looked at that sheet, it didn't have, the sheet number was incorrect and the sheet title was incorrect. It was only showing everything beyond the hash character, right? Once we removed the hash character, the problem resolved. So you've got to be careful about what characters you use in your sheet set fields. Okay? One more tip before you go, and I know we're over time. Percentage. Okay? As a default, if you noticed, percentage gives you a blank character in the field. If you leave that blank, you end up with hyphens in your custom properties on the drawing. It doesn't show up in the sheet set manager that way, but once resolves on the sheet, it shows up as hyphens, and you end up with hyphens everywhere. So if you want to avoid the hyphens, use 2 percentage characters. All right? Now there's another non-printing character as well, and I can't remember what the ASCII code is for it, ANSI. Non-breaking space. Yeah, it's called a non-breaking space. The percentage also, if you actually, percentage will give you a problem in the sheet index. You have to use the ANSI code in some cases if you use properties, blank properties in the sheet index. Typically we don't. Sometimes we might show the revision number in the drawing index, sheet title, sheet number, index number, and all that stuff. Just keep that in mind. And I did go over time. I'm sorry. Thank you. Any questions?